Hi, everybody. David Nour back with you after a week of being away. And it was great to see that my co-host, Randy Seidl, held the fort down. Hello, Randy.
Hey, Nour, how you doing? We survived barely. We had one little technical glitch, but certainly great to have you back and very excited and pumped to have Latané with us this week.
I was going to say, Latané is our guest. Hello, Latané.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
It's great to have you. And I got to tell you, you're an anomaly in a good way, because a lot of our past guests have been predominantly kind of sales leaders and even some channel leaders. And you're here to represent all that's great about marketing.
I'm a fox in the hen house, maybe.
We're gonna talk a lot about the relationship and the good struggle between sales and channels and marketing. So it's great to have you. Let's start with an overview. So for those that may not know as much about your background, can you just give us an overview of your professional background, where you've been and what you've done today?
Sure. So I have a very, very random background. I actually started in accounting, but Randy and David, I'm dyslexic. Nobody wants a dyslexic CPA. So that didn't last long. So I moved into consulting and then eventually found my way to selling. I loved selling. I was a frontline sales gal and also a sales leader, and then accidentally got brought into marketing, and the rest is history. So I joke a lot about being a recovering sales gal. I've been in recovery now about 6 years, though, as a CMO. I was a CMO at Aperio, which was a very, very large independent professional services firm focused on cloud and customer experience and worker experience. And then now I get to be the CMO here at 6sense, the leading account engagement platform. So it's been an interesting ride.
That's a great background. What a diversified background. For those that may not know as much about 6sense, give us an overview of what do you guys do and the fundamental problems you solve.
Yeah, so when you think about, and I know we're going to talk about sales and marketing alignment later, but we believe that one of the, or at least I believe, and 6sense believes, like, hey, we all get along. We're all friends. We all just want to win. We have a great time at club. Our issues, are really seeped in lack of insights, and then difficulty coordinating execution. And if you start to zoom out and think about the technology and how our tech stacks have come about, we have tons of data. There's data in your CRM. There's data in my marketing automation solution. There's people coming to our website that we have no idea they're on our website. There's people doing research on our companies. There's people on G2. And we're all operating on these little data silos and trying to make informed decisions. And that creates a lot of problems. So one of the first big things that we do is we bring all of that data together so that as a sales leader and a marketing leader, we can actually sit there and say, who are our best customers? Who are our ideal customers? And if you ask a sales and marketing leader who the ideal customers are, and it's like, the dating game where they're in different rooms, I bet you're going to get 65 different answers, typically, right? That's a problem. We don't want that, right? And marketing is operated off of leads. A lead is a contact. Randy, when you and David, when you coach sales leaders on why deals didn't close, what's one of the top reasons a deal doesn't close?
Yeah, they were chasing the wrong opportunity.
Wrong opportunity, and potentially just single threaded, right? You look at 50 deals that you worked and you thought it was a great account and you were working one contact. That's a problem. Right. That's also a problem because marketing focuses historically on leads or one contact. I'm literally sending you failed opportunities because I'm sending you single threaded things, right? So what we want to do is we want to bring all those insights together to show you who are your ideal accounts? What does an ideal buying team look like? Because we have to work an entire buying team together. What are our most effective channels? what do our prospects and customers really care about? What's the research that they're doing? Because you want to be the most prepared sales team, right? And I want to put you in a position to shine and be the most prepared sales team. So that's a big part of what we do. And then the other big part of what we do is help coordinate the execution. So think about, more and more, we can't just hand things off. A customer doesn't know what phase in the journey they are, and that they're a stage 2 opportunity, which means a BDR takes the meeting and then goes to this, which means that, right? They just want a great experience with your company. And so how do we bring all those orchestration channels together? Your chatbot, your BDRs, your, that first meeting, your demos, and make sure they're very, very consistent and kind of orchestrated across sales, marketing, and even customer success.
Well,
so that's what we do. We're that foundational platform that brings all those insights together, as well as helps coordinate execution.
For our audience, if you've attended any of our previous sessions, I would encourage you to jump in with your questions, comments, in terms of, we're going to talk a lot about sales and marketing and channel relationships. Randy, let me go to you with a question.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Latané, with you think about what you just said and the sales model or go-to-market model for 6sense, I would imagine traditionally you were maybe kind of on the enablement side, the marketing side as the companies that you're selling to, but probably more and more now it's pivoting that the CROs are also involved in the decision. Is that the case?
It's critical. It's critical. And CMOs and CROs, because here's the thing, guys, is that we as leaders in marketing and sales have to become more technical, whether we want to or not.
Yeah.
And I mean, I joke about having, 50,000 unread emails. Like, I'm kind of a spaz. Like, I don't necessarily want to get more and more technical, but for us to be successful, we have to understand insights and these platforms and be that type of leader. Like, David, you talked about coaching leaders, and when you show up in the boardroom, they don't want decisions based on one little example and gut feel. They want to know that you really have done your due diligence and you're on top of your business. And so I think our skills have to be, we just have to dig in, and I sometimes I hear leaders say, oh, well, there's someone on my team that's really junior that's kind of deciding that and this, and that's a shame. That, like, how are you going to make sure you make a right decision? Because really every person in your organization should be running on insights, and that starts with you.
So let's build on that for a second. Are there some key trends you've observed through this pandemic, Latané, that you believe are going to continue to bolster 6sense growth and really the success? And you know where I'm going to go with this. I'm going to flip the coin and ask you, are there some trends that could threaten it?
So, it's interesting, and I think, Randy, you kind of cued into this. You said, I bet sales is more and more interested in 6sense. And that's true. And the reason why is because I think marketing has always, not always, but in the last certainly 15 years, made a pretty big shift to digital, right? We understand that a ton of the journey is done, doing research, using review sites, just on third-party sites, on our own website before someone wants to talk to somebody, right? And so we've been leaning in as marketers into that, and how we help people self-serve and how we help them orchestrate and how we generate engagement and move them along, right? Well, and that's been happening in sales, but the pandemic really ripped a little bit of a Band-Aid off, right? Because sellers could still pre-pandemic go to a conference, meet people at the coffee station, do the golf games, do the steak dinners, which I love, don't get me wrong, that, and I'm excited for that stuff to come back into the mix. But I think what we've learned is that, wow, how powerful will it be once, as a seller, I start to embrace a buyer's digital footprint as well. So now I don't have, think about when someone ghosts you, it's the worst, right? You're like, they're just dark. Well, what if I can show you, yeah, they're dark to your phone calls, but here's what they're doing on the website. Here's what they're doing with their content. Here's what they're doing with your competitors. Then you know why they're ghosting you, right? And that can help inform how you get them back to re-engage. Right. Or, again, we all know buyers are liars. We love them, but I'm trained in Sandler. He taught me buyers are liars. And, they'll say, oh, we're good. No, I got everything I need. I'm just working through the process. And you're like, how come you are like dissecting our pricing page? Like, how come you are not good? You haven't figured it out, or you're not ready, or whatever, So I think that now that we've started to expose what we call this dark funnel of activity and insight and enlightened sales to that, they don't want to go back, right? Yes, I still want to, get out and see my prospects and form relationships, but that digital signal is a competitive advantage. And so we're seeing that over and over and over again.
So let me ask you a question that I know you've been asked before. Is there a line in which those insights become intrusive? And again, we're all in sales. We want to drive awareness. We want to create engagement. I get all that. But
no. So I coach on the 4 R's of relevance. Okay. And I think personalization can feel like a parlor trick, at least to me. Like, hey, you went to UVA. I went to UVA too. Yeah, I don't care. Like, I really don't. Lots of people went to the University of Virginia. Like, I got shit to do. What, be relevant to what I need. And so these are the 4 R's that I coach on. 1 is account relevance. What do you know about the size of this account, the industry of this account? What makes them an ideal customer for you? And what have you done to help other like accounts? Oh, you just went through an IPO. This is how we support that, right? So what's that account relevance? Okay, so that's layer 1. Layer 2 is persona relevance. So you're a CMO in a Series B company. You're probably thinking about blah, 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 blah. Be more proactively generating demand versus just an inbound, right? Or you're probably thinking about, so account level, persona level. Those are 2 R's. The 3rd R is behavior. So if I'm a BDR, and I spent a day being a BDR a little while ago, and I tell you, you can waste a colossal amount of time sleuthing around and doing nothing. That's what I found. It was real. I sucked at it. It was like I had all of these rabbit holes and blah, blah, blah. So this is where this 3rd R is really, really important. If I can tell you the keywords that this account is most researching, shouldn't that be the type of content you send? Shouldn't you put that right in the subject line? If I know that David is researching predictive analytics at the Nour group, and he is the head of sales, I should probably put predictive analytics in the subject line and talk about, hey, let me tell you how we've helped companies of your size and people like you with better forecasting accuracy, because that's typically what a salesperson will care about with predictive analytics. So that's the 3rd R. And then the 4th is like the holy grail, which is timing. Timing, right? Where are they in their journey? Are they about to open an opportunity? Are they comparing vendors? Then that's a different relevance than I just need them to know who we are, because I can see they're starting to like wake up and realize they have a problem. And so if I can tell you account insights, persona insights, behavioral insights, and timing, as a marketer, as an SDR or BDR, as a seller, as a sales leader, like we can start to be very, very relevant. And I don't think that's creepy at all. I find that helpful.
Love that. So Randy, thank you for that. Latané, I love those nuggets. So Randy, we got a question from Tucker.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, Latané, given everything that you said, then the salespeople just have to qualify that they have money and it's a done deal, and they'll just be wiring the orders in all day long. I'm sure lots of our sales teams, or it's individual contributor, the CRO or CEO, would love to have your model. And my guess is that everything you just laid through is the exception as opposed to the norm. So hopefully all the sellers at 6sense realize how lucky they are. Anyway, so from Tucker, thanks Tucker. Love what 6sense is doing. Does 6sense have a preferred sales methodology that's aligned best with intent data and digital signals? Great question.
We don't have a preferred sales methodology. I would say in the book that we wrote and came out in July, we actually show our sales stages, and we show 6sense predictions and kind of how they overlap and what they mean, right? So we show, because a lot of the 6sense data is pre-opportunity opening, right? So we talk a lot about a dark funnel, because once it's in Salesforce, you're like tracking an opportunity, right? But before it gets in Salesforce, it's like a big hairball of who knows what's going on, right? And so what we do is we shine a light on that pre-opportunity funnel and then provide insights that help with the in opportunity funnel. So a lot of times what we do with our clients is we look at their current sales stages, and then we say, okay, if your definition of stage 3 is blah, 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 this is how you would use 6sense in stage 3. So we more like customize to their sales stages, but I do provide an example in the book of how kind of we do it for ourselves.
So you're I'm sorry. So you're kind of the, I'll say Switzerland or the umbrella. So no matter what sales methodology people have, whether it's a formal medic or kind of homegrown, 6sense can easily get weaved into that anywhere along the way.
Yeah, and I think most people have some form of sales methodology that that's a steak, but they've seasoned it with a bunch of other stuff. Mm-hmm. So, we'll take whatever side orders you put on your steak and seasoning and work with that. I would say just personally, and maybe this is the marketer in me speaking, personally, what I try to think about less than our stages and what we're trying to do and like what progresses someone from stage 2 to 3 in our own minds, is I try to think about what does that prospect need to do or know to advance. And there's a Gartner analyst called Brent Adamson. I'm like obsessed with him. I'm his like biggest fangirl. He doesn't know who I am, but I think he's so cool. But he's really propagated this challenger buyer and that they have to gain consensus every stage. And so I've taken that ball and really run with it. And for us at 6sense, what we've done is we've taken every stage, the pre-pipeline as well as the in-pipeline stages. And we've said, what does this buying team need to know or do? And based on what we know they need to know or do, what's the asset that we're going to create, right? So if maybe it's an ROI calculator, maybe it's how does 6sense fit into your MarTech stack, interactive. Maybe it's pricing and they're trying to budget for how much ad spend they need. So we have an ad spend calculator, right? So really trying to create almost like job aids, but job aids for the prospect, if that makes sense. And that has been like a real game changer for us.
So you brought up the book. You're author of this best-selling book, No Forms, No Spam, No Cold Calls. Where did the idea come from? And can you share a brief synopsis with our audience?
Yeah, so I kind of a weird. So I was at Aperio, and I thought that I had like an awesome job. I had a big marketing team, global. And everything was going great. We got acquired. Everyone knows how that goes. So I was kind of thinking about what I was going to do next, and I loved 6sense because I had tried to do account-based at Aperio in the ways that people told you to do it. They said, collaborate with sales and get a list of top accounts, and then overinvest and do all these personal landing pages for every single one of those accounts, and do a pilot first. And the whole thing just died under its own weight. I mean, first of all, when you go around and you ask sales, like what accounts to focus on, they're going to give you the worst accounts ever, the ones they cannot get into. Also, there's a fairness thing where it's like, well, Japan needs to put an account in there because we need to make sure that Takashi has an account. And we're trying to break into the retail vertical. And so we dreamed about Walmart last night, so let's put them in there. So you end up with this like super hodgepodge list that like you're never gonna do anything, right? And so I just was kind of like, when I saw 6sense's like complete data-driven approach, I was like, we can really change marketing and sales forever. And that got me really excited. But then when I got to 6sense, I felt like a complete moron because everybody was talking about an intent data and a CDP and programmatic, like all this jargon and buzzwords and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I had to create a whole glossary of terms. I called it talking nonsense just to keep up with like what the hell was going on. And I'm like, I had like kind of the door noise is my son. Sorry. He's telling me he's riding his bike to the lake.
Nice.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
But anyway, I just, and I had like this real inferiority moment. Like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm talking about. I need to just cut it. Like I'm out. And my husband was like, you figure things out. You've got this. Like, you need to play to your strengths. Like, think about where you've been and what you know. And I'm like crying. I'm like, I have no strengths. He's like, seriously, put your big girl pants on. You got this. And so I was like, I do. I have this. And what we did at Aperio is, again, we were maniacally focused on customer experience. And I believed, and that's why I was the CMO of that company, I believe that if you create a great experience for your employees and you create a great experience for your customers, and a great experience relies on data and insights, and that companies with superior data and insights and experience will outperform time and time again. And that was what I consulted on. That is what we did at Aperio. And I was like, okay, so that's what I know. Now let me look at the MarTech and sales tech industry. And when I had put that lens on it, it's kind of a mess. And what I found was that a lot of the systems, especially the foundational systems, like if you think about a marketing automation platform, they're set up to automate and get an email. They're set up to get an email with a form, which I don't know about you, but I hate filling out forms. They're sent out to send a colossal amount of emails. Again, I'm at 58,000 emails. I don't need any more emails. And then they arbitrarily score things as a marketing qualified lead. And so sales is kind of left with staring at a quota and an account list and having to make a ton of cold calls. And I'm like, this sucks. This doesn't work at all. And so I said, here we are. We've got all of this amazing technology, all this amazing data. We have to create a way to deliver our goals or double our revenue at an industry leading CAC. We have to be able to do that with experience. And that means we are going to set an experience up with no forms, no spam, no cold calls, because prospects don't like that. And I don't think it works anymore. And so that's kind of we called it Project Bold Moves. That was kind of our bold objective. And, if you're going to come to one of our dinners, we do use a form because we want to make sure you're going to come and find out if you have dietary restrictions and things like that. So we have sort of rules about, how we use these different things, but that's our mantra, is to be able to do that. And so I didn't set out to write the book. I set out to change the game. And as we were doing it, I started advising companies and talking to people, and I started sending the same notes over and over again and the same templates and the same workshops. And I'm like, I just got to write this all down in one place. So that's what we did. And then we put it out in July.
So the book, so I can summarize. The book is a set of best practices. The book is what's the synopsis of the book?
Yeah, it is it's a field guide, right? So, I start out with the impetus to change and why change in the beginning, but then I really go through, here's the 5-step process. Here's examples of the of how we've executed that, how customers have executed that. So just really trying to be very practical.
Love that. Randy.
Yes, I guess I have kind of two questions. First one is, I guess your definition of a marketing qualified lead would be far different than kind of what the industry is doing today, correct?
Yeah, so typically the way people score a lead can be somewhat arbitrary. So it's like a points system. And we trust AI, which can be back tested, which is like a system that, it's just math, like how statistically accurate is this going to convert? And then we look at a bunch of different scores, account scores, persona scores, behavioral scores, and the timing that I talked about earlier, to actually tell you where that sweet spot is. And so that's what we really base our go-to-market energy around.
Yeah. My observation, I guess it'd be kind of similar to, I think most tech companies would say, okay, if you're thinking about a cake being the ultimate sale, here's the flour, the dough. People say marketing qualified lead. Your definition, hey, the cake is a little bit more baked and better when it gets into sales. But the follow-up tied in with that, I meant to ask in the beginning, but you intentionally have your title as Chief Market Officer, not Chief Marketing Officer. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so it wasn't my idea originally, the move to Chief Market Officer. It's a woman named Christine Heckert, who's actually a CEO now, but she was a CMO for a long time. And she just was, we were at a networking retreat that we run, and she said, guys, we are showing up, and David, you'll like this, we're showing up talking about our ings. This is how many leads, this is how many white papers, this is how many blogs. The chief finance officer doesn't show up talking about his or her ings, how many times they closed the book, how many forecasts they built. We need to come showing up as the voice of the market and really own our function. And so that stuck with me. And it took me a while to change the title because I wasn't sure I was living up to it. But I feel now in a place where I'm always working on it, but I feel like I can have that title now.
Let me Latané, let me build on that. Do you believe, I often talk about don't confuse your output with your outcome. Do you believe what you just described is one of the strategies, maybe one of the tactics, one of the approaches that is just not working with the traditional approach to marketing and leads and kind of feeding the sales force with leads, if you will? Yeah,
destiny follows story. And what's the story we're telling ourselves as an ing? It's, we did more, we're crushing it. We did all these MQLs, and meanwhile sales is like not hitting their numbers, right? Or we're crushing it. We pivoted to virtual and did 9,000 webinars. Well, who cares? Were they even good? Did anyone even go? Like, did it even matter? I'd rather do one webinar that's like really good and like, actually worthwhile. And so I just think sometimes in marketing, we also serve a lot of functions, and that's a misnomer that we just serve sales. We serve sales, but we also serve HR. There's a talent war right now, and there's a lot that we have to do around branding the company. We serve customer success in a huge way. We serve investor relations. So there's just like a lot. I think there's a lot of things that we quietly do. And that can be challenging, and you can kind of get into the rut of just a big task list. And so to me, having that beacon of what is my real job? And my real job is to show up for someone like you, David, or someone like you, Randy, with the voice of the market.
Randy, you're going to either cringe or smile at this. I actually spoke to a VP of marketing yesterday. This company is on their fifth CRO in the last like 5-6 years. And the VP of marketing actually raised his hand and said, maybe it's not just these people. Maybe we should think about cleaning house. Seidl, my question of you is, why do you believe that CRO seems to have that target on his or her back, that for whatever reason, the numbers aren't happening, so let's just shoot the CRO and, put somebody else in, versus exactly what Latané's talking about?
Yeah, so I'll try and keep it short, which is going to be tough. But I'd say the number one indicator is missing the board plan. So the board goes to the CEO. The CEO, if they're authentic, are going to kind of take the ball and kind of go through what the normal explanation would be. I'd say more times than not, CEO says, geez, it's a sales problem, it's a CRO, right? So that would be bad behavior. That's probably why it happens most of the time. I know a lot of specific situations like that. And obviously, if you're what I'd call a more authentic CEO, you're going to peel back the onion and say, okay, is there a product market fit issue? Is there an issue with the product? Do we have the right solution set? Do we have the right marketing engine so that we're getting the right leads into the sales force? Are we compensating the sales force properly? Do we have a good value proposition? Blah, blah, blah. But for sure, I think I forgot what the latest is, but I think give or take it's probably 15 or 16 months is the current tenure, if that, of a CRO. And Latané, you may have a perspective as well.
Well, it's interesting. Every time my CEO calls me, I assume he's calling to fire me.
Okay, wait a minute. You're freaking awesome. You got to assume, hey, he's calling to give you more stock, give you promotion, give you more money.
No, I think you have to assume. I mean, I don't know. I guess just like you, I know in your role, you talk to CROs every day, and probably you get the call. You're probably one of their first calls, right?
Before it happens, because they say, hey, I've seen the movie. Here's what's coming.
Well, I am also someone who is really invested in CMOs in a community, and I'm also one of the first calls. And I just have seen it play out so many times, and it sucks. And so, I don't think you can ever assume anything.
Yeah. And then the other fall would be CEO points to CRO, CRO points to CMO. It's not my problem. It's marketing, right? And for whatever reason, it's never, and obviously you and I are biased, right? But it's rarely, geez, it's not the product. Because a lot of times the CEOs are these technology founders or hey, product's great, my product's great. It's just the, sales and marketing think, well, do you think maybe it's the market, or, they think they're smarter than the customers? Well, the customers don't know what they want. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Latané, we talked about, a lot of strategies, tactics, approaches that, is not working in other environments. I'm always curious about who's getting this right, who's doing this really well. Can you think of either a 6sense customer or otherwise that you believe has this kind of intelligent, and I'm thinking the whole time, this is a relationship engagement. This is a relationship nurturing set of insights that are data driven. Who's doing this right? Who's really good at this?
Yeah, so one of my favorite CMOs and customers is Kay Glebe at One Source Virtual. So they're on fire, and she's got a great relationship with sales. They've got a really good channel and customer like they really focus a lot on their channel as well as their customers. So I just think it's an interesting GTM and use case for account based. She's all in on the insights, and she's also no BS, which I love. So they're crushing it. And then I always try to like benchmark and get ideas from her.
Have you gotten to a place where you kind of know some of those attributes of who gets it and who's going to be on board with this approach versus you're going to have to convince somebody and it's going to be an uphill battle?
You know, I think it's how hands-on they and that's why I kind of led with, you know, if you don't want to really dig in and understand it, and one of your questions I think is how I learn, and I learn by like doing. And I always get worried when people are like, well, I don't want to get like, they don't say they don't want to get their hands dirty, but they're like, well, I'm going to let my team, you know, I don't really get involved in that. I'm kind of up here. And I just think today to really understand stuff, you kind of gotta really play with it and do it. And that's why I was a BDR for a day before I took the team over. I'm like, I haven't run a BDR team in 5 years. My experience is old. Let's be honest. Like I got to go and do it. And then I can kind of figure out the strategy. So anyway, that's, I guess.
For our audience, if you've joined us late, you've been listening to Latané Conant, the Chief Market Officer at 6sense. Some great insights in terms of technology, marketing, and really intelligent, data-driven ways to understand that buyer's journey and kind of what they need, when they need it, and how to be relevant at the right time and on their environment, on their timeline, if you will. Randy, let me go to you with a question.
Yeah, absolutely. Great insights, Latin. Thanks. What about words of wisdom or feedback for any SDRs that we might have listening?
You know, I always encourage our team to advocate for themselves because and be curious and know great technology and know things that are going to enable them to do their job better. Because they're the ones doing it I think sometimes it's it's an entry level position or it's their first job out of school. And so they sort of feel like things are going to be done to them, right? Or they're given what they're supposed to do. And the reality is they're the ones doing the job, and innovation happens on the job, and innovation happens in the front lines, and sales is a ground game, and they are like the first line of defense. And so like advocate, if something's not working, I don't want to keep doing it, right? So I'm always like, raise the flag, let us know. If you network with some other team and they've got some cool way to do things that we don't do yet, like, let's try it, you know? And so just kind of like that speaking up. And we actually kind of created an interesting role on the team that's somewhat the liaison to enable that, to make sure that we're just on top of everything we need to be on top of.
So build on that a second. Are there some, again, through this pandemic in the last 14, 15 months, are there some strategies that have evolved in that sales, marketing, channel relationship that you believe is going to have a lasting impact? It's really going to change the way technology, customer engagement, technology sales is going to progress moving forward.
Well, I think that you have, and one of our customers calls it a pod, and I think that's an interesting name for it. But regardless of where the leaders line up and if you report up to the same thing or not, I think there's a frontline pod that has to be established and needs to be using the same goals, the same data set, the same focus. And to me, that pod would be, you know, the AE supported by their BDR or SDR, whatever you call that, supported by like a field marketing or an ABX type function. And those three things have to come together, in my opinion, to create that holistic experience. And so when you think about any change, I would love to tell you all you have to do is buy 6sense and like it's going to start raining money. But change is people, process, and technology. Technology can be a catalyst for change and should be. Great technology should be a catalyst for change. But there's a people element, and bringing those people together on the same data again, on the same insights, on the same dash. We have one dashboard across and it is very transparent. Anyone can go and see if we're making our quota or not for pipeline created at any time. And you can drill down to that pod level right there, because that's kind of the bones of where pipeline gets created.
Randy, let me go to you.
Yes. What was I? Oh, yeah. So on the, I'll play devil's advocate here. So, Latané, we've got obviously lots of CRO friends. Lots of them are upset with marketing. They're the spend that's getting wasted over marketing. They could be more, you know, if they had better metrics and obviously did things like you did, make life easier. So a lot of them, you know, for lack of better words, are saying, hey, I want to have the marketing function under me. So it's I'll say a CRO's view, but wondering what you think about that. And then what do you think down the road to say, okay, the kind of go-to-market function around, you know, CRO, CMO, partner, you know, those wrapping up under one. So kind of two questions in there.
I mean, you know, I hate being an it depends gal because that's such a lame answer. And so it somewhat does depend on your size and your scale and things like that. Here's what I will tell you is I'm a pretty high energy gal and I'm willing to work really, really hard. And I have had both sales and marketing. And I will tell you what happened to me was the quarterly, daily expectations in sales are right there every day, every second. And it's very hard to give marketing, the truly great marketing, the energy and focus that it needs, because typically the purview of marketing is a lot longer. So for me to run a successful program, it might take a year. It might take a year to really work. And when you're a CRO, it's very difficult to have that level of focus and zoom out. And so that's why if done correctly, it's a good partnership. And there should be some friction, right? And I should be saying, no, yeah, I'm not deploying resources on that because it's going to be little and short term and not affect a lot of accounts. And I have to go unlock a whole new TAM for us that we decided, right? We know we're going to run out of ICP in 18 months, and you're going to be pissed that you don't have good territories to assign new reps to. Mm-hmm. And so I got to go warm that up. What do you want me to do? You know what I mean? And so it just kind of, you need that a little bit of the healthy tension. But again, the data is what doesn't lie.
So Randy, let me ask you, let me build on that comment. A lot of investors, a lot of boards don't seem to have that longer term appetite. How do you balance exactly what Latané just said, which is I need a year potentially to really drive the results from this campaign with, listen, we got to get traction. We got to get logos. We got to get that CRO that we hired. We got to get some of that under our belt. How do you resolve that kind of friction, that battle?
Yeah, I think it's probably two things, expectations and alignment. So from an expectation perspective, it comes to, what's the board, there may be a public plan, but kind of what's the board plan that the CEO and the board are agreeing to, and therefore the team. So whatever those financial metrics are that are leading the charge, you got to make sure that those are aligned. And a lot of times there's a whole bunch of other politics and agendas that come into play around, that. So sometimes people are destined to fail just because the CEO signs up for some plan. They goes back to the executive leadership team, and the executive leadership team says, "What are you, crazy?" And they say, "Okay, well, let's try. I had to do it," and all that. So that's a whole, that's one story on the expectation side. Then other one is, I think, just alignment. So if it is that, it's CRO to CMO, the CMOs are signing up for, okay, here's some tactical short-term metrics, but then together we have to have a long-term view. And I'd say, I think similar to what I said before was, I think it's what's the strength of the leadership, what's the strength of the CEO, and the ability to be authentic and to be real and to give and get feedback to say, okay, let's have a true team, across the board, which sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't. And this kind of COVID world, there's some companies that got a monster tailwind behind their backs, and then they're cranking. Okay, does that mean that they had great execution or happen to get lucky? The other side, you get some people who are executing great, just for a whole bunch of kind of bad reasons with COVID, then fell on their face. Doesn't necessarily make them bad. So anyway, I'll cut stop there.
So Latané, let me ask you. You brought up marketing also serving HR, and I've always believed that in the war for talent, who wins? The talent. So have you found it to be more challenging or less in helping to brand a company to attract and retain exceptional talent? Talk a little about marketing talent that you're seeing, and has gotten more difficult or less?
Okay, well, there's a lot to unpack with that. So I'm going to start with your last question and then work my way back, if that's okay. So it's cuckoo bananas right now.
I'm sorry, is that a technical term? Is that a data-driven tech?
It is.
Yeah, Harvard Business School just published a paper on it.
I run a community with another guy, Matt Hines, and we have about 1,000 CMOs in this community. And every week we vote on the topic we want to cover. Last week we decided to cover hiring, and comp came up. And so there are about 200 CMOs on the call. And I said, how many of you recently have interviewed a candidate who makes significantly more than you? Everybody's hand went up. It's nuts. I'm telling you, it's people are having multiple offers within a week. We had someone in like a staffing firm, and he said it's really, really hot and a crazy market. So I don't know what to tell you about that, other than that's what I'm experiencing. And we're doing a little pulse comp survey because the Radford data is just too old right now. So I guess what I've always believed, regardless of the talent market today or what it was before, is that culture it's hard to define and explain, but it's the most important thing, and it beats strategy every day. And I do think that CMOs have a big role in being the mascot and the expression of your culture, especially coming from a professional services environment, right? The people were our product. And I think if done correctly, it's a huge differentiator for customers. They feel it. They want to be part of your movement. They say, I'm not exactly sure what they do, but I'm buying. I want. That is where things are going. I feel it. It's an energy that you create, and that is all about your people. That's how every single person shows up and kind of gives off that energy. And so your brand starts with your people, and that's really something I take very, very seriously. And it's a lot easier to retain someone good than try to hire and onboard someone new. And I tell folks all the time, if you want to get 10% more, you can leave tomorrow. I'm sure there's lots of places you can go get 10% more. Now, I don't want you to go and be able to get 30 or 50% more. Like that's on me. But that 10% is the fact that we have fun every day and that we truly love each other and we're challenging each other. And, so that's, you can't find that everywhere. So good luck.
I'm often coaching leaders that the corner office's two primary focus is the brand and the culture. And it's great to hear you bring both of those together. And I love that. You're right. The CMO is that mascot. It's that ambassador of who are we really? What do we stand for? And as we see more values aligned between what employees are looking for and what companies identify and really advocate as the values they deeply believe in, that alignment is going to become more critical. So we've got a comment from Robert. Randy?
It's an amazing market, and if you can't inspire your team, they will leave. Absolutely. Your work has to matter. People don't want to know their work matters. They want to know their work matters, and you appreciate them. Absolutely. Very well said, Robert. And then speaking of which, I want to make sure I don't forget Peter Mellon, a couple shout outs in there. So Peter, thank you. And thinking about the sales and marketing tech space, he's an example of a great tier one VC that's been in the tech company side of things. And I think like several now are starting to pivot to the sales and marketing space. So Peter, thanks for your kind comments. And then Latané, speaking of fun, and we had a comment there, I think, from Jeff Barrows too, but speaking of fun, you have a great analogy between wine and marketing. It's a long story, but if you can do it succinctly, that'd be great.
Uh-oh. I was doing all these virtual wine tastings, as I'm sure you guys have been too. And I noticed one of the companies was doing a really nice job, not just saying this wine is this grape and blah, 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 but they really took you on a tour of the soil and why, and how the wind affects the soil and why the founder wanted that property and named the wine after his daughter and blah, blah, blah. And kind of going back to brand and culture, like that, those stories are what attach you to then that wine, right? And when you have that sip, you're like, oh, I feel like that's. And I think sometimes in sales and marketing, we rush into, this is a Cabernet, it's da 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 da, it's a lot. Like we just want to, and we forget the story and the connection and the why. And so I just was thinking about that and how 6sense tells our story and our why, and that, our grapes are the data, so when we care a lot about the data and the quality of the data, because that's what goes into making our wine.
You brought up earlier that you learn by doing. Can you give us an example? What have you learned recently by kind of immersing yourself and doing something?
Oh, well, I do this coffee and 6sense thing with our marketing ops guy lately, where I just go in there and we pick a screen and I just nerd out on the screen. Like, what is this? Why would this be interesting? What, and like, who would use this screen? And the product team really loves it. They think it's awesome. Because I always have ideas coming out of that. You know what I mean? But I don't know, just like I like to get in and touch and feel our product. And so that's something. I've been known to run my own field events. So I've been going rogue and having a chef at my house and having CMOs over for dinner.
Love it.
So, stuff like that.
Love it. So earlier you mentioned, accounting to sales to consulting, marketing. In thinking about your own professional journey, Latané, is there a piece of coaching or advice that beyond short-term execution or performance or results has really created a profound impact or indelible imprint on the leader that you've become?
You know, my mom used to always tell me growing up I was my own worst enemy. And I think a lot of type A people, we are our own worst enemy. And I had a really amazing boss who trusted me a lot. And he would always tell me over and over again, trust your instincts. You need to do a better job trusting your instincts. And I feel like the biggest mistakes that I've made have been when I didn't go with what I knew was right. And I kind of was like, well, maybe I'm stupid, or I'm not catching on, and I'm not seeing something everyone else is. And so I really try to take a step back and trust my instincts.
That's fantastic. For our audience, if you've joined us late, you've been listening to Latané Conant, Chief Market Officer at 6sense. Randy, you want to share a little bit before we wrap up with our audience about the sales community?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Latané, just to chime in what you said, I've got actually a Chicago-based company, Motorola Solutions. Greg Brown had been a mentor of mine for a while as a CEO, and one of the several great takeaways I had from him was he said, if you don't know, you know, which is a way you can kind of go through all your analytics and objective profile criteria. But to your point, hey, if your gut's not there, that's usually a good indicator. So you're in good company with that. Yeah, so a couple of things. So this is a rough draft of my upcoming book called Your Go-To Sales Advisor. Latané's book we will also be posting, but we have all in, I think, 400 plus best practices. We've got over 100 folks from the advisory board and a whole bunch of great content in here. Several people watching this, I'm sure, have participated. So thank you very much. And sales community, our theme is learn more so you can sell more. We have lots of great content. The idea is targeted at individual contributor SDRs all the way on up to CROs and CEOs, and really focused in that B2B technology selling side of things, and obviously good information for anybody interested in sales, but really focused right there. And we have still have a no-brainer 30-day free trial, so you can go to salescommunity.com to get that. And obviously, we do the free trial because once people try us, they stay with us. So please spread the word around these great podcasts. These are on our website and they're free. And 6sense and Latané, you've been Latané been fantastic, and definitely will help you promote your book after the fact. And Latané, any closing comments for you?
I'm glad it's summer.
There you go.
What are you most looking forward to doing on the other side of this pandemic?
Well, so one of our pandemic guilty pleasures, I guess, is we saved a lot of money on vacation. So we bought a boat, a ski boat. So we're really pumped about getting out there and wake surfing and skiing and tubing. My boys, one of them that came in is, they're 13 and 14. So it's a real golden age. They still want to hang out with us, and, we're going to hang out with them as long as they'll let us.
Well, that's fantastic. So thank you for being our guest. It's great to have you. For our audience, each Wednesday, typically around noon Eastern, we have a different guest from the technology, sales, marketing, channel community. Hope you'll come back. On behalf of Randy Seidl and sales community, I'm David Nour. Thanks for joining us. See you next time. Thanks everybody.